Greetings, everyone. I'm Jürgen Boos, CEO of Frankfurter Buchmesse.
And I'm Hugo Setzer, President of the International Publishers Association.
Thank you for joining this session, which is part of a series of partnerships between the IPA and Frankfurter Buchmesse.
In IPA, we are glad to partner with the Frankfurter Buchmesse for these activities. We hope you enjoy the session.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is James Taylor. I'm the Director of Communications and Freedom to Publish at the International Publishers Association. Thank you for being with us for this joint session organised by the IPA and LitCam with the support of Aldous Up. We've got a great lineup of speakers for you today to show that reading matters, and we're going to get to those in a minute. But before we get there, I'd like to invite IPA's President, Hugo Setzer, to join us and say a few words. Take it away, Hugo.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us to learn more about how reading habits around the world are changing and what publishers and others can do to ensure that the love of reading is not lost amid the competition from other forms of entertainment and demands on our time. A personal word of thanks to Wafawarowa, the chair of our Inclusive Publishing and Literacy Committee, who has encouraged this focus on reading habits. Thanks also to Kristenn Einarsson for making the theme of the Lillehammer Congress, Reading Matters. We all know that reading matters, but to convince others, we need to understand what is happening. Our new Reading Matters report starts that process, and I'm sure our speakers today will tell us how we can develop that further in the future. I wish you a successful session. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. And you mentioned the two people who are going to speak next. So we're going to now have some words specifically about the Reading Matters report. And to do that, we are going to welcome Wafawarowa, the chair of the IPA's Inclusive Publishing and Literacy Committee, and Kristenn Einarsson, who is the chair of the IPA's Freedom to Publish Committee and was also former managing director of the Norwegian Publishers Association, who commissioned these reports initially for the Congress in Lillehammer. I'm sure he'll tell you more about that too. So, Brian, please join us. Tell us a little bit more about this report.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm Wafawarowa. I'm the chair of the International Publishers Association's Inclusive Publishing and Literacy Committee. Today's session goes to the heart of our business in the book sector, that is reading. As Hugo mentioned earlier today, the IPA published its State of Publishing reports. There are 7 reports looking at vital areas of international publishing, that is copyright, the freedom to publish, and the report we'll be focusing on today, which is reading. I'm proud to be the chair of the IPA's Inclusive Publishing and Literacy Committee. This is the committee that is the home for the IPA's work on publishing industry statistics, our work on the Sustainable Development Goals, and inclusion and diversity. It is also the home of our work on literacy and reading. Over the years, we have had different members present local reports on reading habits, always interesting in themselves and as a comparison among countries. Today we have a fantastic lineup of speakers who can talk about their own work on literacy and promotion of reading in different regions, from India to Africa to Europe. Each region faces its own challenges, but also has its own valuable experiences that we can share and learn from, as we hope to do now. Earlier this year, the 33rd International Publishers Congress should have taken place in Lillehammer, Norway. The theme for the Congress was Reading Matters. And that is the title of the report that Kristenn will present to you now. We hope that this will give you a gist of what we would have shared and deliberated on in Lillehammer. Once again, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Reading matters indeed. In this new report, Surveys and Campaigns, How to Keep and Recover Readers, we have tried to describe the development by looking at reading surveys from 26 countries around the world. We have also looked at how organized reading activities contribute to stimulating reading. The aim of the report has been to identify data about reading habits and then to summarize them. Our hope is that this report will form an empirical base and a starting point for future research and discussions regarding this important topic for the international publishing industry. When we have been looking at tendencies and explanatory models, we observe that questions on reading habits are complex questions whose answers depend both on commissioner and who is carrying out the survey, as well as a chosen methodology. It would be an advantage for comparison purposes if there was a more common approach to collect information. A study on this will now be done in Europe using this report as a reference. If we look at the result, there is a global and clear trend that the traditional reading of books has declined over the last 20 years. But the level of decrease in reading varies from country to country. And in many countries, the curve has flattened and there is now a slight increase. The decline is strongest in the young age group. And not surprisingly, women generally read more than men. And older readers are the most faithful readers. We also notice that more readers read fewer books than before, and they read less frequently. On the other side, the number of non-readers is declining. There are many reading stimulation activities directed at children. There are fewer for adults. The reading stimulation activities can be reading competitions, rewarding the highest amount of read pages, number of days focusing on reading out loud, book purchasing, or particular dissemination activities. And book donation are important in many countries to augment the selection of books. We hope that the examples of activities presented in this report can be used as inspiration for reading campaigns around the world. Should one try to draw a conclusion from the report, it would be that even though several countries have reported positive developments in reading behavior, overall there is a downward trend. More media is competing for users' time, and there are few reasons to believe that the pressure from other sources of entertainment will change. Still, there is a reason for optimism, as many of the respondents say that they wish to read more, and reading continues to hold a strong cultural position. And surely, reading stimulation activities work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristenn, for that. That's great. So now that you've got a better idea of what's in this report and a bit of the details, I think, so first of all, I'd like to ask you to get your questions ready. After this session on the YouTube Premiere, we're going to shift over to a Zoom webinar where you'll be able to ask your questions. So start getting those ready and keep your eyes open for the link to the Zoom webinar in the chat below and the comments on the video. Next up, so we're going to invite our different speakers to join us. We have 4 great speakers with us today. We have Karin Plötz from LitCam, who will look at Europe, and Brij Kothari from Planet Read, who will look at India, Nyariki from the Association for the Development of Education in Africa, who will look at the African situation, and Piero Attanasio from the Italian Publishers Association, who's who's already had the idea from this report to look at how Europe can take it forwards, and will talk to us about that. So, well, let's start with Karin. Please take it away.
Hello, I'm Karin Plötz, the director of the NGO LitCam. Reading Matters, that is the title of the new IPA Global Reading Report. Reading matters? That is right, and it's very important to promote reading. Reading a book is a pleasure, but in our digitalized and globalized world, there is a lack of time, and there are a lot of alternatives like social media, the internet, and TV series. Reading matters, and therefore it's very important to motivate children to read. To motivate children to read means to win readers for the future. I will concentrate on the situation in Germany, where in 2015 the PISA studies about the reading level places Germany on the 12th place. It's not bad, but it's not good enough. There are two prerequisites to promote reading and to be a good reader. The first is to be able to read, and the second, to be motivated to read. And there are three main factors who are important for the reading performance. And that is the individual student and the family, that's the student and the teacher, and that is the education system. I would like to present you two best practices from the LitCam, two LitCam projects, which really supports the children to be able to read, and which promotes the children to be motivated to read. So I will present you Football Meets Culture and the Reading Kicker. The educational system in Germany doesn't succeed to break off the interdependency between the social background of the children and the educational success. Our idea was to support the children with a weak social background with football. Football motivates and integrates. People all over the world and children all over the world loves football, and they want to be like Neymar, Messi or Ronaldo. Therefore, we combine football training with additional lessons and with cultural events, and we try to motivate the children to be more interested in culture and education. The concept for one project here is: we cooperate for each project with a local school and a local popular football club. We choose 24 children from low-educated or disadvantaged families per group. They are aged between 8 and 12 years. 2 times a week, the children get 1 hour of additional lessons and 1 hour of football training. The project also emphasizes on digital competence. Mentoring and care by trained educators and professional youth coaches from the local Bundesliga clubs strengthens the children's self-esteem. Cultural events broaden the children's horizon and awake their interest in culture and arts. And at the end of the project year, a football tournament for all nationwide project teams take place. The children develop a spirit of community and teamwork. Our program started in 2007. Currently, we have 32 projects in 20 German cities with approximately 700 children, and we cooperate with 20 local Bundesliga clubs. And we have found out in 13 years of experience that there are a few simple facts which motivate children to read, especially the children from a social weak background. One fact: football books. If the children have to read, they prefer books about things they like. Boys prefer to read books about football players like Messi or Ronaldo. They are often eager to read such books, even if the text is very long or difficult to read. Live readings. Children from our project visit a reading by a children's book author. After the reading, most of the children want to read the book. One reads directly after the reading on his journey back. Pictures and real stories. Children like magazines like Mein Spiegel, which include popular themes that have many photos, illustrations, and short stories. Reading of books. The children are fascinated by a book if you combine videos, photos, and interesting short stories. A recently published book with 12 short stories of young football players integrates a lot of illustrations, photos, and QR codes with which the reader can visualize a video from the football player who wrote the story. This book is now very successful. Based on our experience with the project Football Meets Culture, we invented an award for the best football children book and the best football youth book, the Lesekicker or the Reading Kicker. We want to promote reading, but we also want to focus on the need of high-quality children and youth books which really fit to the interests of the children. Every 2 years, the Lesekicker will be awarded. It starts with a campaign. LitCam presents a shortlist of the 5 best football children books and the 5 best football youth books. 150 classes takes part as a student jury and 10 adults, including Manuel Neuer, a popular German football player, as a senior jury. There are readings in the locations in the football stadium, and at the end there is a big ceremony award with 2 popular football players and 100 children. I hope I have given you a little impression of our work, and thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Karin. Really interesting. Well, let's keep things moving along so we've got as much time for your questions as possible. So please, I'd like to invite Brij Kothari to take the floor and tell us about your work.
Hello and greetings to the brothers and sisters of the Frankfurt Book Fair. I'm going to tell you the story of an idea born in 1996, which became national policy in India in 2019. And we call this idea same language subtitling for mass reading and literacy. So in 1996, I was watching a Spanish film with some friends and it had English subtitles. And the thought at the time was, why don't they have Spanish subtitles on Spanish films to be able to catch the dialogue better? And then it was a casual extension of that thought, why don't they have Hindi subtitles on Hindi cinema and Tamil subtitles on Tamil cinema and so on in all Indian languages so that people in India can get reading practice and become better and better readers over time. We did some research at the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad, and what we found is that actually viewers love to sing along to same language subtitles on Bollywood film songs. So it's really karaoke for them at that point. They want to know the song lyrics. They want to sing along. We also found that a weak reader cannot but try to engage in reading practice. So reading becomes inescapable, and this we found through eye tracking studies. Third thing that we found is that over time, this kind of drip exposure to reading skills and reading practice leads to measurable reading skill improvement. So in 3 to 5 years, a weak reader can actually transition from barely reading a few words or letters to actually being able to read simple texts, newspaper headlines, sometimes even a newspaper, etc. Now, one interesting thing is that a lot of girls and women really benefit from this, primarily for 2 reasons. One is that they spend fewer years in school, so when they get reading practice at home, that's a very important access issue to reading practice. The other reason is that girls and women like to watch more films and serial-based content on television, and that's just a fact from ratings companies. So they end up getting more reading practice as well. So there's a strong gender component for why same language subtitling is actually extremely important in India. And now the Ministry of Information Broadcasting has now made same language subtitling national policy. And now by 2025, 50% of the content that is entertainment on television has to have same language subtitling. And this is for 3 reasons. One is media access among 60 to 65 million deaf and hard of hearing people. And that itself is a very important reason why we should be doing same language subtitling in any case. But there's additional reason for the hearing as well. So about 600 million weak readers who are television viewers as well get regular reading practice, and they can become functional and fluent readers. The third reason is language learning, for which also there is evidence, so that people pick up vocabulary, people pick up listening comprehension skills. So for these 3 reasons, same language subtitling has been scaled up nationally, and kudos to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting for actually passing the accessibility standards. Now, we would also like in India and globally for companies like Netflix, Amazon, Disney, who are streaming giants, to actually offer subtitles in the same language on all their content, not just in English or a few Roman script-based languages, but all languages. So effectively, if they have a Hindi film, it should also have the option of Hindi subtitles, which one can turn on and off. As simple as that. Which would then give parents and children around the world the ability to turn on the subtitles to give their children reading practice. So we believe that this idea can go to Africa in their languages, on their local content, in South Asia, their languages, their local content. Now, same language subtitling has broadly two expressions in our work. One is on existing films and content on television and on streaming platforms. The other is we've taken the learnings from this and applied it to make children's reading accessible on television, on digital platforms. So for example, take a children's book. You can actually convert it into an animation and then have the narration come down as same language subtitles. Now, look at the advantages of this. You can create that same children's story, or Annie book we call it, in any language by simply replacing the text and the audio. So that's a big challenge, right? Most children's books are not available in most Indian languages. They are available only in maybe a few select languages, English and sometimes in Hindi, and a few other languages. But they're not available in the 22 official languages plus the 700 odd dialects that are very actively spoken in India. Now, printed books are also difficult to distribute to 650,000 villages, for example. Now, with an Annie book or an animated story with same language subtitles, that can travel on mobile phones, on any screen, basically television screens that are ubiquitous now in India. So that's a project that we call Bookbox, where children's animated stories are available in more than 40 plus languages. Now, what we found is that, for example, on YouTube, over 115 million views from all over the world of Annie books. Now that's pretty good, I think, for children's content. And then we've done eye tracking studies to show that even in villages in Rajasthan, in the government schools, children from class 1 to class 5, they do try to read along to these children's animated stories. And we've also found in a study in Delhi in government schools that this kind of regular exposure to children's content improves children's reading skills over time. So the similar learnings from the application of same language subtitling on Bollywood content or film content, as well as on children's books that were converted into animated stories. Globally, same language subtitling can give 2 billion people reading practice every day and for life. So I see same language subtitling as India's contribution to global literacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brij. Wow, that's fascinating. I hope you'll have a few questions coming later on. So next, let's move from India to Africa. Lily Nyariki, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lily Nyariki, and I'm the focal point for books and learning materials at the Association for the Development of Education in Africa, ADEA. And I'm pleased to join this panel on best practices for reading promotion in Africa, where I'm expected to give my thoughts, a way forward, and possibly a vision for Africa. And so I want to begin with what I think could be best practices for children. And my thoughts are that parents need to be heavily involved in helping their children learn how to read from an early age. And therefore, parents have to be prepared to buy books for children, have them easily accessible within their homes, and most importantly, make time to read for their children every night. It's not going to be an easy thing, but it has been done before and by parents who are keen on helping their children. And I think parents can be urged to just take a little bit of time for their children every evening to read interesting books that help their children begin to love books and reading at an early age. And so I think what is important is that the media can be involved in helping parents understand why it is important that they start early with their children. It's of course known that when children are introduced to whatever habit early on in life, they learn fast and they keep the habit. Quickly then, let me move on to the youth, who are the most important constituent in our African continent. They, according to the statistics, they are the majority, and we need to have a special focus on them. And for this, my take is that we need to ensure that given the digital age that we're living in, we need to ensure that young people are enabled to have access to online platforms, either at home or especially at school. And my thinking is that we need to organize better school libraries within the learning environment so that our young people can easily interact with books that will help them acquire knowledge and skills. Because as we know, reading being a fundamental skill upon which every other skill is dependent, we do need to help our young people have accessible ways of interacting with books and other digital formats in order to be able to nurture and continue to use the reading skill that hopefully they would have acquired when they were younger, to be able to take advantage of acquiring the skills that they need for the world of work. Regarding adults, this is a challenging stage, I think, in terms of nurturing their interest in reading, but we cannot give up on them. And I think we need to work with adult literacy programs that are going on in different African countries. I know in some countries there are very strong movements for adult literacy learning, and I think we need to join hands with the departments that have been given the responsibility to help adults to learn and to continue learning in life, and ensure that books that are relevant to their needs, especially their vocations, are made available at these learning centers. And hopefully also, if they can be encouraged to use digital platforms where they can also learn and to read and even continue reading, as we say, for lifelong purposes. Regarding the physically challenged, because I think this is a group that we hardly talk about, and given the fact that it's a topical matter currently, working with the physically challenged in order to include them in the opportunities that are available, we need to begin to work with them in mind in terms of ensuring that we have various formats like audiobooks, braille, and such like materials that will help them be included, especially now that we are heavily dependent on IT to make information available for everyone else. We must also have a definite plan to work with those who are physically challenged, that is the deaf, the blind, and those who are on wheelchair and perhaps need certain assistance in terms of movement to get into the libraries. We need to ensure that all their needs are catered for and they're able therefore to access information for their various needs. It doesn't matter whether they are blind, whether they are deaf, whether they are on wheels, they need to be included. And I think this is an agenda that must be made deliberate, especially within Africa, and given the fact that there are people on the ground working on this, this special group of people. And I think both ADEA and other organizations like IPA and the rest need to work together so that we can begin to focus more on this special group. Now, regarding the vision for Africa, and I'm now going back to what we are doing within ADEA. For the past 2 years or so, we've been focusing on having policies on the ground formulated and implemented where we want governments to take responsibility to recognize that book publishing is critical for educational quality. It is important for acquisition of knowledge for every member of the society. And we have come up with what we call a continental framework for national book and reading policy, which is freely available and which provides then guidelines of what to include rather in a national book and reading policy. So this document is available, and we want to urge all African countries and even our partners to look at it and see how best we can work together, collaborate in terms of ensuring that we help member countries, African member countries, ADEA member countries especially, to sit together and agree on formulating national book and reading policies. On another initiative, we are glad to be associated with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals book clubs. And to this end, both ADEA and APNET have decided to join forces. And although we are at the very initial stages of bringing up this agenda, I'm glad to report that we are in agreement that we need to develop book clubs by identifying, first of all, book lists that are aligned to the various sustainable development goals, and therefore then organize our young people, children, adults, and even the physically challenged to be able to help them discuss these books, and so that in a way we are facilitating the appreciation of the development goals, but also we are working together to ensure that reading as a skill is promoted among the various groups. And so I think we have a lot of work to do. We have what it takes to do it, and I think we will continue to collaborate with APNET and other like-minded groups like Aphilia, that is the regional group for librarians across Africa. We are also working with booksellers. We are working with writers. And together, we hope that we can come up with a formidable strategy on developing reading clubs across Africa, across each nation, so that reading becomes a commonplace thing, and that reading is appreciated not only by the people in the book industry, but governments in particular, and generally every other person in the society. Because I think what is been lacking is this collaborative approach that we all need to understand why reading is important, and in fact that our lives depend upon reading. The quality of life depends upon what we read and what we write and what we produce as people in the book industry. And so I'm glad to be here discussing with you all, and I hope to continue working with each one of you to ensure that books reading become something that is readily topical among each and every African. Thank you very much, and I do hope to continue discussing these and many other issues to do with books and reading and education and development in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Lily. So that's got us through Europe and India and Africa. Great insights from each. Our last speaker for this first session here through the LitCam YouTube is Piero Attanasio from the Italian Publishers Association, who's going to start looking to the future of how the Reading Matters report can be used and inspire more work in this area. Piero, please take it away.
I am Piero Attanasio from the Italian Publishers Association, but my role here is as a coordinator of the ALDUS, the network of European book fairs created by a project co-funded by the European Commission and under the Creative Europe program. And we are now starting a new project that we call the ALDUS Up. The network associates 20 book fairs from 15 European countries. And the new project also involves the Federation of European Publishers, the University of Mainz, the Fundación Rui Pérez in Spain, and very important for our subject today, the Norwegian Publisher Association. A key objective of the new project is to enrich the capacity of book fairs of engaging readers in innovative formats to promote reading. For this purpose, the first step is to better understand how reading is changing in the era of social media. The survey carried out by the Norwegian colleagues for the unlucky IPA Congress in Lillehammer is an invaluable starting point for this purpose, since it provides a picture of what is happening internationally around the two topics of our interest. First, measuring and then promoting reading. Developing a strategy to promote reading can be effective, in fact, only if it is based on the best information on how reading habits are evolving. Our hypothesis is that today, the main effect of the digitization on the publishing business is in the influence on the way people read rather than in the production or distribution of books. This requires new ways of measuring also the reading. And at the same time, the relation between reading and the new forms of entertainment, or information, or education and training. I'm speaking about the competition between books and TV series in meeting the demand of narrative, or between books and the YouTube tutorials in providing self-help about any aspect of the daily life, or in the educational field, and so on and so forth. Navigating the Lillehammer report, we see that in many countries there is awareness of this change and of the need for a new methodology to survive reading. In Europe, we see this very clearly in the German survey Book Buyer Quo Vadis, in France, where a new survey identifies the phenomenon of light readers, like as they call, and also in my country, in Italy, where the Publisher Association launched 3 years ago a new observatory to detect the new forms of reading that are emerging in the era of social media. In Aldus, we plan to compare the surveys described in the report so as to identify common elements and differences both in the methodologies and in the main findings. Our goal is to define a common methodology for future European surveys and pilot this methodology in at least one country. Let me seize this opportunity to invite all European countries to join this project, and which means in practice, not to fear about this, it means in practice just to participate in the benchmarking exercise and to discuss with us the future methodology. If other countries also are interested outside Europe in joining this discussion, they are welcome, though we cannot promise at this stage the full involvement in the project because of the budget constraints. Understanding current reading habits is a prerequisite to plan new forms of reading promotion. In parallel, in fact, we are all experimenting new formats in this area, very often based on the use of social media. However, there is a limit to our capacity of inventing new formats, because if it is true, as we believe, that social media is changing reading habits, the use of social media to stimulate reading may generate a contradictory loop if we still have in mind old way of reading. We wish instead to look at the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for that, Piero. And thank you again to Lily, Brij, Karin, Kristenn, Brian, and Hugo for your contributions so far. I hope that we've managed to inform you a little bit more about the Reading Matters report that IPA has just published, and also to give you a better feeling for the different challenges and contexts in different regions of the world. Conversation hasn't finished though, and so if you look in the comment section for this video, you should see a Zoom link. Those of you watching this live, please click on the Zoom link and join me and the other speakers in Zoom for your opportunity to ask them questions, find out more about the report and the different work of each of our speakers. Hope to see you in Zoom shortly. Those of you who can't join us, thanks for joining us now. And hopefully see you in Zoom in a minute. Thank you.